Welcome to Classroom Strategies with Teacher Sherry J. I'm Sherry Johnson, an instructional coach who desires to build teachers' capacity and empower parents to be partners in their children's educational journey. Please don't forget to press the subscribe button so you will be updated regarding future videos. In this episode, we're looking at part 1 of Giftedness and Depression. Just a reminder that sadness is not depression. I'm a teacher, not a psychologist. So the examples that I will share and the perspective from which I will talk will be from that of an educator. So what does the research say? According to the Mayo Clinic, sadness is feeling down or unhappy in response to grief, discouragement, or disappointment. So think about a student who forgets his or her lunch money, or has broken a pencil, or who may be saddened by the loss of a friend who has moved to another school. These are saddening situations and can be overcome. Depression, on the other hand, that lasts for weeks. That feeling of helplessness and lack of joy that seem to rob the very essence of who our students are. It causes emotional and functional and physical problems that sometimes manifests itself at school. Depression does occur in our kids, including our gifted and talented learners. Because of their asynchronous development, in which their cognitive and their emotional skills are so far advanced, they tend to struggle with manipulating the social situations in which they find themselves in. These can cause depression. Their high intensities and emotion sometimes cause depression because they don't have the mental maturity to deal with it. They have the cognitive ability for academic work, but that mental maturity to know how to handle situations tend to cause them depression. Contrary to popular belief that our gifted and talented students are popular and really enjoying school, some of them experience social isolation, and this intense isolation in which they are caught between two worlds. On one hand, they are seeking their chronological peers so they can socialize with them, but on the other hand, they're looking for their cognitive peers so they can be stimulated. So they're like lost between two worlds. Another thing that causes depression among our gifted and talented students is perfectionism. Now, perfectionism may be self-imposed, but it can come from societies and it can come from our parents themselves. There is this high expectation placed upon the gifted child that because they wear this label, then they need to be getting 100% in everything, which is not necessarily the case. So there are times when our students struggle with perfectionism because they do not know how to accept failure and learn from those situations. Some of our gifted and talented students have multiple potential. And multipotentiality causes them to become depressed because they have so many pathways. They don't know which path they're willing or wanting to take. So there are lots of reasons that cause them to be depressed. Now, there are different types of depression that people in society deal with. We have situational depression because something is going on, something traumatic happens in our lives, right? There's biological depression, in which there's a chemical imbalance. There's seasonal depression that people call the winter blues. But among our gifted students, we're looking at two specific depressive states. One is interpersonal depression because they're playing messages in their minds over and over that telling them they're not worthy of the label. Some of them suffering from imposter syndrome, in which they live in fear of being found out that they're not as smart as everyone thinks they are. Then, of course, there's existential depression, in which they're questioning the meaning of life, the purpose. Big issues such as poverty, world peace. All of those things cause depression as they struggle with the issue of fairness and justice. So there's some signs of depression that as teachers we may notice. Again, we're not psychologists, so we cannot diagnose these problems, but through training and careful observation, we can observe and notice when there are changes in our students. Sometimes we may observe depressed mood, or kids just start crying for no apparent reason, and the crying seems to be non-stop. Sometimes we can see them being isolated. They're no longer wanting to play with friends, or they're not forming friendships. Sometimes even in their writing or in conversation, they may talk about self-harm. These are things that we can observe as teachers, and we can know that something is going on. It's send red flags off. And of course, when there's falling grades, we tend to take note that there's something not quite right with our kids. In the United States, depression has become a serious concern. According to the National Research Center on the Gifted and Talented, between 1980 and 1996, suicide increased by 100% for ages 10 through 14. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for this very same age group, with 596 students killing themselves annually, according to the National Institute of Mental Health, which also states that annually, suicide among 15 through 24 years resulted in over 6,000 young people killing themselves. We need individuals who care. We're fortunate to have educators who will take the training needed so that although we're not psychologists, we may be able to be observant and notice when things are not quite right with our students. Join me in part 2 as we discuss classroom strategies that will help us help our students who are dealing with depression. I will provide you with practical, teacher-tested, research-based, easily implemented ideas so that you can help those students. Thank you for joining me. Remember that together we're growing minds and changing lives. Don't forget to press the subscribe button below so that you will be informed when part 2 is ready.